Hey, Adam.
Hey guys, I'm just driving almost home, so I'll be able to join properly in a moment here.
All right. Be safe.
Do you guys think I should send a blast?
You can.
On Luma? Like, hey, why are you keeping us waiting? Come back here. I don't know. Let's do that.
Well, while you're on that, I guess here we don't, maybe James, I don't know how much you have paid attention or Adam, like what Beyond MVG has been doing past several months or in general. Like I've been up in some spaces sharing like very short words. We have never had discussion. So I wonder, do you want kind of like a context, a deep dive, or with just today's focus?
No, don't let me interrupt. I got the automated Discord message and was like, oh, sure, check it out.
Oh,
I just want to hear what everybody's up to.
that's interesting connection. Yeah, so if you didn't subscribe that, then you are interested to follow up messages, then you have to click there because I made it like privacy first in a sense, which is shooting myself in the foot some ways, but it's also an interesting way to see the network and their interest. So, well, Beyond MVG is like basically in the fourth milestone. So we got funded through this Cardano treasury, and most of the work has been doing like research on metrics. I don't know if you have seen any of the prior reports, but I'm gonna actually share a screen, because if you do find like that might be an interest, then you know where to look for. And also share an app. So instead of Miro boards now, I was thinking, oh, maybe we can customize what people can see and find stuff, and which is even easier than Miro board itself. So this is an application made for that. And on the home page, you will see basically two main buttons: onboarding and then identification, which is like the activity we are like focusing in this upcoming weeks. And in onboarding, you will have this governance measurement framework, which basically gives off this idea of what we are doing with our like research. We look at other older metrics, Drep metrics, SPO metrics, and constitutional metrics. So we had discussions, surveys, interviews, and now we compiled them into challenges, like what are the main problems we see that affect us in the Cardano governance based on these metrics. And today we are basically going to come up with recommendations how we can help to alleviate some of that or assess them. They don't have to like directly be related to these challenges. And also on the top here, you can see what are the challenges. With this page, we're not particularly going to look at it, but this is a way to add stuff. So yeah, this is like the background context where you can find Beyond MVG work and gave like the framework of stuff you're looking in. And going back to this home page, like today we're basically looking at the identification page, which is like the second page of this three-part system. And the challenges are on the left side, where you will see the chart, and then there's the statements or problem statements. And we have the list of like categories, and they are matching the same way as the metric categories, like where your interest lies or a tool you're working on. And you can put the add recommendation there. And basically, you're able to also like assign challenges to your recommendation. And once we're done with the recommendation, adding challenges, you can post any link stuff, tags for filtering later. We will go into prioritization stage where we rank order them. So this is basically in a loop of what we're gonna do today and how it's related to Beyond MVG, and the Beyond MVG is related to the governance metrics that you will be able to find on the left side, which has challenges. Any questions of context of questions you have about anything that I mentioned. And hello, Seon, GB, and pseudoscientist. Well, if there are no questions, I was thinking maybe like the first 5 minutes, everybody can take their time and go through these challenges, either on this left side panel or on the challenge page itself. It feels more comfortable, and you can basically read what options there are. And if you already have like an inkling or I already know an existing recommendation and you can start filling stuff in, that's also a good start. And that basically in 5 minutes or so, when we have kind of catched up what's written on the website, can they get the concept of what challenges are we looking for and what are we missing, and we can open up for discussions regarding of challenges that are missing or things that you were expecting to find but didn't find, or already point that either need helping in writing a recommendation or pointing already existing recommendation. Then we have a discussion back and forth, and we go to prioritization step, which has also some fun elements and guiding questions to go from there.
Was everybody able to get onto the website page that we pasted in the chat, the link?
I can get on there and look at all the challenges, but it tells me I don't have permission to assess this challenge. Do I need to be logged in or something?
So we are not doing assessments for the challenges. And you don't have to be logged in. However, you are right. In case you are in logged out state, you may have to use a travel account to log in if you don't want to create an account yourself or sign with a wallet. On the top right corner, there should say, because that will be using a session key when we do recommendations and stuff.
So do people need to log in to add a recommendation in the next step?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was looking on mobile, and the only icon that you have up there on mobile is actually a log out button, or it looks like a going out the door button. It's an arrow pointing into a box. It's not very clear that is I can log in here and provide some sort of feedback for you. So consider that your first piece of feedback.
Yeah, I haven't looked at how the mobile version would look at all.
Thanks, Adam, for the UI feedback on mobile.
Yeah, that's more like a desktop.
Yeah, the same is on desktop as well. And then after signing in, it looks like I'm also having permission issues. I can't leave any recommendations or anything there unless I'm missing a step.
And you're trying to add recommendation in here or in the challenge page?
Yeah, I guess that was the challenge page. So if I'm leaving
in challenges page, we are not assessing everything or adding any comments. So I have disabled all the features, and idea is just to kind of browse through these challenges and read what are suggested.
Okay, so where were you saying that we could suggest something? Because I'm not seeing where that would be at.
In the identify page, we have the categories, and for each category, we have this add recommendation button.
Okay, yeah, now I'm seeing that there.
And today's focus is, coming up with how do we help Cardano governance?
Yeah, on the left side, you will also see ADA holder metrics, and you will see some visuals there. You can click on it, and then the picture will get bigger, like this. Yeah. And there you actually will see what we have actual measured on chain.
Yeah, and the challenges, the same challenges that are in the challenge page are all visible below the picture itself.
On this Drep delegation change rate stickiness, given that your literal 5-day moving average correlates exactly to people getting rewards and then selling them almost one for one, I'm not sure how useful that chart actually is.
Yeah, well, the point was to see if we have liquid democracy. Are people changing their delegations from one Drep to another one? And out of this chart, you can basically see there is a similar behavior. According to my opinion, a similar behavior amongst ADA owners as we see as delegating Drep, as we see they're delegated to stable operators. And the question is then, why is that so? Is it because Sudo is so happy with his Drep? It's the best Drep in the world? Or is it because Sudo don't know how to redelegate to Utah? Because just tickle your mind.
What would probably make this more useful is actually showing when, at what epochs there were actually on-chain actions to vote on and make a decision. Because I would guess it strongly correlates to periods where there's no on-chain activity for Dreps to do. There's no campaigning going on. Ergo, there's not a ton of movement in terms of people moving their delegation, because when Dreps aren't voting, there's nothing to inspire you to move to somebody else, essentially.
Yeah, I think
It might be done if. Go ahead, Danielle.
Okay, I was just gonna say one of the things, Adam, no matter what the like pattern looks like, it's so zoomed in. Like if you look at the absolute value, there's like 100 or fewer individual wallets moving. So we did look at that. It's not in the chart, but we did look at like when were things happening. But essentially, like our takeaway is like it's so darn small compared to the total. It's like negligent.
That was part of the point I was going to make. The y-axis should probably number of accounts instead of percentage. It's kind of the scale of numbers we're talking about really doesn't communicate how many people are actually moving. It's kind of like, well, what's 0.01%, or, you know, I think if we actually quantify actual number of addresses moving, that might paint the picture a little bit more clearly.
I will also point out the reason why this particular metric popped up in here on this identification page is because there was a recognition of a challenge. Delegation is a static rather than dynamic and responsive. So like the whole discussion of, yeah, like why this like was kind of like these things that you were asked were somewhat discussed, and like now it's boiled down to into this small challenge itself. And if you have like a reason, like for saying like, okay, we have this issue of only few people are voting, but we want to change it, then now we have the ability to create a recommendation and like to change this dynamic or have like a social infrastructure. And if it's not the focus at all, we don't write the recommendation for that. And this is, then we are not dealing with this challenge at all.
Yeah, I think a lot of these, unfortunately, especially around the quote unquote sticky stake problem, come from a false premise that people should have some reason to move, rather than assuming if they're not moving, they must be satisfied with the level of service that they're being provided, right? So if I'm supporting my SPO and they're making blocks and I'm getting rewards, what is my incentive or rationale to move? And the same with a DREP. If I delegate to them and I see that they vote regularly and I mostly or fully agree with how they vote, like what is my rationale to move to a different DREP? So I think there's like this kind of like false premise that we're trying to make stats match a problem that maybe doesn't actually exist in the model.
I would say that, you know, the data kind of speaks for itself. Like, I think regardless of people's satisfaction with their DREPs, I think we should monitor how delegation changes over time. Like, I don't think we're necessarily stating that it should or shouldn't happen. It's just like, hey, this is the fact of how delegation changes. And then from reading the data, we can then infer, okay, was this due to actual governance actions taking place? But yeah, I do think there's still important things to track without holding those implications, as Adam was saying. Yeah, I think that, you know, you really have to first think of, is that an actual problem? But regardless of that answer, I think it's still something that's valuable to keep in scope of monitoring.
Yeah, from my perspective, with this, across all the different metrics, one of the trends that we see is power concentration in DREPs, and that's something that comes across as a chief concern from community members as well. And so this is useful in that it helps you see the state doesn't really move much. So if you're looking at strategies to handle some other problems, it's informative in terms of, can we expect people to change their DREP, or should we reasonably expect they're probably just going to be with their same DREP for a while? So I find it helpful for comparing across and thinking through what may or may not work as strategies if we have a different problem. So I don't think the stickiness we highlighted as a particular problem per se, but it is informative.
Just another note on mobile, I can't see any of those charts. All I can see is like the colored boxes where I can give recommendations. I don't see how I can open that up.
Then I guess you got. I'm gonna write down that I have to go through all the views using phone, because I didn't do that. I was not expecting we need that.
Yeah, I mean, especially if one of our stated goals is to increase power at the edges and hit underrepresented markets. Most of them are not connecting via laptop, they're connecting via phone. So be mobile friendly first and desktop friendly second.
But a question to you guys. So what do you guys think incentivizes ADA owners to delegate in the first place? Do you think they delegate because of rewards? Or is it actually because they genuinely think that, yeah, this DREP, that's my guy. He has my values covered. What do you guys think?
They're doing it because we locked rewards behind whether or not you delegated to a DREP. That's 100% why we have the amount of participation that we do. The average person doesn't care. My wife has onboarded nearly every nurse in her ICU that she works at to crypto. They all keep their assets on Coinbase because they have no interest in delegating to secure the network, or even, and be honest, Coinbase offers better returns on their investment than if they withdrew to their own wallet and tried to figure out a stake pool. So there's just this huge barrier of learning curve to self-custody.
I would also say that this is also an artifact of putting barriers into the DREP registration process. I think if people were more able to self-represent, that probably would be easier for people that have strong opinions to participate. But we kind of really wanted to limit how many DREPs actually existed. And it's kind of forcing people into a model where, like, okay, well, you know, I guess we're doing representative governance here. And some people would either just, you know, be comfortable with delegating with one person and kind of just never participating again. But I think incentivizing people to vote isn't necessarily the correct thing. Like, if you were to say that in the United States, right, or any government, like if you're just trying to make voting gamified and incentivized, I think it kind of loses the weight of the actual matters that we're voting upon, right? like now is the quality of people's opinions less or more because they were incentivized. There's some reward for them to participate in a certain aspect. I think, you know, we should really focus on like, hey, like what are the matters at hand and what is like the important feedback that leads to making proper decisions. And like in the United States, you know, if we look at participation, it's not every person voting on things, but if you were to incentivize people to vote, I think that would extremely skew things potentially for the better or the negative, right? But I think that's the wrong approach. We shouldn't really incentivize voting. We should ensure that the quality of decisions are maintained. And how to do that exactly, I'm not sure, but I think incentivization might be the wrong approach. I think we're looking for the outcome of more participation, but how to actually arise into that should be the question. Like, how do we make people realize the gravity of certain governance actions and how it affects them? And then maybe make it easier for people to participate, either by self-representation or, you know, giving them more resources to what DREP actually aligns with them. But I don't think incentivization is the direct pathway to realize that outcome. It seems like a simple low-hanging fruit one, but I don't think it's adding to the quality of decisions that are made in the process.
Would it be possible to incentivize like area, like an education, or focus on, yeah, like these open spaces? Just instead of participation, we have, it's gonna be dangerous because it will then create competition, and like they are like the new Dreps that are focusing on educating on governance, but that itself has like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, incentivizing
I mean, if
feels
there
like
were
easy, but
if there were good or
what do
perfect
you
answers,
incentivize?
somebody would have already figured it out, right? And done this a long time ago. We could pay people to vote, and we would get a lot more people voting to get paid. But like Suda was pointing out, we wouldn't necessarily get better decision making because those people might not be informed about what they're voting on. And then we could lower the barrier to entry and allow everybody to self-represent and vote with their wallet. But then you get right into the existing model of why, like in the United States here, our voter turnout is so low, because even being, you know, like let's say 20% of people show up for our national elections here in Arizona, that makes me one out of 1.6 million people that are voting. So it begins to feel like my vote doesn't matter. So why should I bother? You know, like unless you have a strong sense of civic duty, you don't show up.
And an interesting thing, just as a side quest, so like we had DAOs in the crypto space. Well, we still have, but if you see like DAOs, like Compound of Uniswap, people use their token to claim airdrop, and by vote they also got airdrop of tokens that actually has nominal wealth. So for example, if you hold a Compound token, you actually take part of deciding like how much of rewards of the Compound protocol goes into your wallet. So you have like an economic incentivise to participate in governance, which we don't, as an individual, don't have here on the Cardano ecosystem. I don't know if anyone has thought about that.
I think you have to think about what exactly about governance do you want to incentivize. It's do we want to incentivize participation overall? Do we want to incentivize them to be right? Why they're voting, how they vote? Do we want to, like, what do we actually want to incentivize when it comes to governance incentivization?
I think
Again,
one of the
yeah.
things. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, jump on.
Yeah, in addition to that, I also like I think we need to define in addition to what someone said, I think we need to define
Yeah, fair. Danielle, you want to comment on?
It was a previous topic, and I think my internet was cutting out, so I can't comment on what was just said, unfortunately. So I'll wait in case someone else wants to follow.
Sure, Adam.
Yeah, something that just occurred to me, and I can't see the actual graphs that are shown on this page at the moment. But is there, are we measuring actually like aging of governance actions that end up ratifying? Because we have this 30-day window in which voting is open, because that is probably the most objective metric, is, you know, like how quickly or efficiently does the ecosystem arrive at decision-making results, rather than caring about whether or not we vote yes or no, because that's always going to be subject to people's, you know, kind of biases and opinions. But does the average on-chain action that ends up passing and becoming ratified take the full 30 days? Because I mean, that kind of shows you if even the voters you have are apathetic in general, or if they're actually tapped in and kind of caring about the efficiency of the governance mechanism.
Interesting view. So we haven't made a chart for that. The closest thing we have is basically we measure the CC members, how fast they made a decision on the different governance action. But interesting point there, Adam. Yeah, Teva.
Yeah, I'm wondering, here is like the question here is, what is meaningful participation in governance? And I'm trying to even figure out like, what is the most meaningful governance event that even happened here in Intersect or in Cardano in general? And it's hard to to me, the convention was the most like fun for, because everybody, you see that everybody contributed and their contribution was captured. And maybe that's the only thing that makes a governance valuable, is that you can point at the source and you can point at the contribution, where right now it's we can like point at the proposal creator, and we can point at the Drep rationale, or so we kind of have that in place. But I feel like maybe this here we have the like opportunity for a recommendation is to enhance like seeing these kinds of relations. And maybe if you want to incentivize, but this, yeah, it's like maybe too early. But the recommendation itself could be like, we want to elevate these key elements that we find meaningful, and somehow have like a better access dashboarding. So we don't even know how we solve this problem, but the recommendation could be we invest in that area where we like look more for the same data that we find meaningful, and we validate it from each person, and basically build like a human graph of who agree with value, basically, or who are or feeling that they were contributing.
By the way, Table, did you show how participants here now can click on ADA holder metrics and you choose the metrics on the left side here and add the recommendation? And you like select chart there, like ADA owner or stickiness. Then you can add your thought of what can be done to, let's say, fix. We talked about redelegation. We have talked about how ADA owners are incentivized.
Here we have a challenge called proposal or complex to analyze. Maybe that's also kind of related to this meaningful participation. Is for who is it complex? Does he want to know? And is there that guiding community or like scaffolding to help them to understand that proposal, or help the proposer it themselves make the proposal less complex? Like we can, in way of my recommendations are like building more service layers or more like institutions or teams that tackle very specific issues, but I don't know if that's the right way to go.
Yeah, and I will just add also, for record, you can add more than one challenge. So if you see some correlation with ADA owner, Drep, voting, you can click on the left side and add it to them. So, Sudo, what do you think is we talked about that the ADA owners perhaps is not so motivated due to, let's say, the governance, but they are incentivized to rewards. Is there any way that we can get them more involved in governance and understand? Adam mentioned that most people are holding their bags on centralized exchanges. Should we have voting as a service on Coinbase, Binance? What do you guys think? What can be plausible solution for getting more ADA owners involved?
Well, yeah, I definitely don't see, Binance and Coinbase and them getting involved in casting votes on behalf of their custodial holdings. And I know in at least some cases for centralized exchanges, that's actually against their terms of service, and they explicitly say that they're not going to participate in on-chain governance. I can only imagine everybody trying to tag CZ every time they want to get a treasury proposal through. That would be a good time.
Yeah, I was more thinking like, so I know there have been some talk regarding, so basically that you have some UI on your at your centralized exchange and a list of Dreps, and you can delegate your voting power to them and have like similar to, like, for example, on Binance Square, where you have like news of what's going on and stuff like that. And the exchange can actually charge people for delegating and redelegating.
I mean, maybe I just wouldn't see, if I'm already the type of crypto holder that's keeping my assets on an exchange, why I would care that much about getting involved in the governance aspects of the chain. Because I mean, these guys they're not on X, they're not on YouTube, they're not really doing much of anything aside from banking on number go up, essentially. And so again, kind of touching back on what Sudo mentioned earlier, that might make the participation numbers go up, but are we actually getting better decision making as a result of it?
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, Sido. Oh, you're muted, by the way.
There you go. Yeah, just really want to re-echo that, I think we need to set our North Stars. Yeah, we do want active participation, but how we do that, it shouldn't be something that's forced. And currently, if we look at the ecosystem, for people that aren't self-representing, their only choice is to trust a DREP. And there is no mechanism for a delegator to know exactly how that delegate is going to vote or that representative is going to vote until after the vote is done and the action has passed. So there's a whole lot of trust that's put into the system here, right? Like a DREP can change his vote as many times to the edge of the epoch. So there really isn't a mechanism for a person to actively know what their vote actually means. And like kind of to a point that Adam had brought up earlier is like, when you have the dilution of numbers, a bunch of people voting, you kind of get the sense that your vote doesn't matter. But we actually have metrics to say, as a DREP, the numbers of exactly how much influence I have or little influence I have is very apparent. It's deterministic of how much influence we have. And it's recorded. There is a record of exactly what votes you're making. And I really think the mechanism of making it easier for participation to happen directly is a good thing. Will it amount to an increase in participation significantly? Maybe, maybe not. But it does make sure that the ability for a person's vote to have meaningful impact and it be what that initial voter was wanting to take place. And I think currently there's a lot of faith in the ecosystem, either that delegators just pick a DREP and don't change it, or that they're putting their faith and trust into a DREP and hope that they vote how they wish them to do. So we really don't even have a good metric of how satisfied people are with their DREPs. Even if they change to a DREP, they have to trust that other DREP. So I think, working on mechanisms to have verifiable means of maybe, smart contracts that lock, like a DREP can lock in their vote, right? Which, there's different ways to think about that because you might want to change your position. But for delegators to have a more deterministic way to know what they're delegating to, right? When we're put into a governance action, we're given 3 options: yes, no, abstain. It's almost that rationale doesn't really matter as much as does this align with the vote that I would have put in. And I don't think we have a mechanism to really deterministically define like, oh yeah, by delegating to this person, I am going to delegate to the representative that's going to vote in the manner I wish them to.
Interesting. James?
Yeah, well said, Pseudo. And I agree with all of that. And I would add that the additional layer is we have no idea either. Not yet. Time will tell which decisions were the good ones and which ones weren't. But we don't even have that data yet, right? We have how many total decisions have been made? It's still a relatively small sample size, and not enough time has elapsed to know if each of those decisions was the right one for sure. And over time, debate will give way to the evidence of whether or not decisions were, let's just say, in someone's best interest. And that might be relative too, right? Some decisions might make the token value appreciate in the short term, which would be good for those people just parking their crypto on Coinbase. Other decisions, it might take longer and against some other success metric to know whether or not they were valuable, right? But I know that if, as an American, right, and Adam referenced voting, I know that I am more likely to vote if I'm pissed off about the last outcome because of the evidence I can see in front of me, right? And if I'm satisfied with the state of things, I'm more likely to maybe let it slip and not just do it for civic duty. So I completely agree that just getting passive ADA holders to vote doesn't feel valuable, right? It feels like a way of us trying to show our new toys to people who don't care, right? But over time, if we are able to represent the quality of decisions, getting to that point that Pseudo's talking about of achieving better decisions, which we just can't do yet. We can't. I think we should be looking ahead, assuming that this whole experiment is going to be successful. What's going to help grow that engagement organically years into the future when this thing matters a lot more than it matters right now.
Yeah, that's an excellent, excellent point of view. Simon.
Yeah, so I agree with James. We don't exactly know either. But if we look at the mechanism and compare it to what we have in our governments and companies, I would say it's an improvement, because we vote people into power for years right now, and until something bad happens, or like 4 years are up, nothing changes. In our scenario, when someone votes just in a way they don't like, we can immediately switch to another person. Also, I would say, I mean, it's, of course, you need a little bit of technical expertise, but 500 ADA is, I don't know what, but take it back. 500 ADA is a lot in some parts of the world, so maybe that is not ideal. And also I want to mention, getting people to vote is, I always think, like, in terms of making the decision, I don't care if like 30% of the people vote or 100% of the people vote. If the 30% of the people, if they feel very strongly about it, if they made the research, by all means, go ahead, let the 30% vote, and they vote hopefully the right way, with, you know, the best of the knowledge, the best of the, however, yeah, it's the best of the knowledge. But there is one thing which I believe could be a problem, which is, let's say Coinbase does decide to vote, or there's a large incumbent that wants to, take over governance or vote in a bad way. Then I think it is important that we have as much voting going on as possible.
Yeah, Theo, and then after that, Daniel.
As for recommendation, would Cardano benefit from pooling where we can have multiple delegates in a single, like delegate to multiple people from a single wallet, or even have a platform that delegates to, yeah, I don't know, ideas, or it's weird that we cannot do direct voting. Like having more hybrid voting maybe gives the ability for us to feel like we're in power. Where right now, I wonder, like, with this, if I redelegate, does it take my delegation off for 1 week, or it continues on the previous delegation for 2 weeks or 2 epochs, and then just is applied to another one? So it's even this mechanism right now is, yeah, somewhere probably written, but I think it needs to be more, maybe not fluid, but yeah, more hybrid. I would prefer, because if you are like voting for multiple Dreps, then you will have the ability to see what they're conflicting with each other, why, and then you can start to make more choices of which Dreps to follow. But if you're only following one and just get yes or no, and you don't even know what's happening, then and you don't compare it. Yeah, well, there are 2 ways to go with. We just better comparison tools, but if you give people the power to have multiple choices, then they probably will look both of the choices. It's like, I used to invest in ADA, but I didn't look that much maybe on news, but because I had a little bit I always got some feed into it, but probably I didn't look like what's Polkadot doing or Tezos is doing because I didn't own any of these assets. And that, I think the early stage kind of showed that, like, yeah, having the ability to kind of influence something will make you come back later and think about it, what you just did.
Daniel, your turn. Can you help me out a little bit? I have to just fix a small thing here with my daughter. 2 seconds. I will be back. But your turn, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks. So kind of the same topic that Simon brought up around kind of centralization, and if a big actor comes in, we kind of have a problem. So it's good to have more people staking or delegated to voting in that scenario. This is one of the things that I was thinking about based on what the data showed. If you combine the fact that we currently have a situation where 2 Dreps could block a constitutional amendment, which I find to be a pretty concerning number. Not that I'm particularly concerned knowing the actors behind those at the moment, but we are in a situation where 2 entities can block a constitutional amendment. So that's kind of concerning, as well as like the number of Dreps total to pass proposals is getting smaller and smaller. If you combine that with the fact that people don't really change who they're staking to, one of the things I was thinking about is if that means every new person joining and delegating as they want to pull out their stake rewards, I see that as, I assume that's the biggest reason why people delegate, is they need to get their staking rewards out. So as those people start to like onboard, one of the things that feels like it would be pretty helpful is for the user interfaces to nudge those people to consider the smaller Dreps, because I think naturally people who are less familiar are going to put more trust either in just one of the like auto abstain option, or like the big Dreps where they're like, oh, these people already have a lot of trust from the community, I'm just going to pick one of them, it's the easy solution. So I'm curious if people have any particular thoughts as to whether that's useful, could be helpful, or minimal change based on how the system works. Just an idea, I guess.
So that's an interesting idea, but you know, I'm not too sure that staking rewards is such a big thing, especially for the passive people in this ecosystem, like the people that are already participants, that are big pools, that are Dreps. I mean, they have the most to gain for in terms of staking rewards. So these people that have never participated in anything in Cardano before, right? Staking rewards isn't going to be the thing that brings them over, because I mean, they have to choose a pool first. You know, if they don't know who's going to give them the most returns, like, you know, it's going to take 2 epochs for them to get those rewards. So I'm not too sure that staking rewards is the main driver into what people are making their decisions in, right? I would also say that, you know, it's very interesting that we have an auto abstain option, but we don't have like maybe not an auto yes, but like a way for direct voting into yes and no. And, you know, the way that governance was structured is the fact that you trust a delegate holistically, but the way I choose my representation, I agree with someone on 3 of 5 issues, but those other issues, I don't agree with him. So why do I have to put my entire faith onto one representative who only represents me mostly? That could be a 51%, or it could be a 99.9%. But like, as a person that has, you know, 1 ADA, 1 vote, initial premise of governance was going to be, like, I don't have a mechanism to truly represent myself in every single individual action. I have to either become a DREP myself or entrust someone to make all decisions for me. And I think the way input really works is more granular. And the system isn't organized in a fashion to have representation at that scale. And I think that's a huge detriment. That could be a potential turnoff to everyone else, that, you know, we're not looking at things at the governance action level. We're looking at it, who's your representative? right? And it's like that representative doesn't align with me 100%. And I think if we want governance to be a more fair representation of what the community wants, we should work towards those mechanisms that approach things at a granular level. And then their stickiness doesn't become a big issue because it's per issue that we're looking at. It's not, you know, does this DREP, has he made all the decisions I want retroactively? Like, oh, you know what? He didn't vote how I wanted him. Now I need to change, but, you know, damage done. You know, it's kind of, we're looking to correct things after potentially bad things have happened. And that to me is a huge turnoff as well, right? Like if major implications have happened that you were against, that's not going to make you want to vote in the future. And I think, you know, a lot of the things that we're trying to achieve probably aren't possible within the current infrastructure that we have. And it's going to take rethinking how the entire infrastructure works currently. And it's not going to be, how do we use the status quo and kind of try to shape things after the fact? I think, you know, a big consideration needs to happen is like, hey, is there fundamental major changes that need to take place to realize the outcomes that we're looking at?
Follow-up question on that, because some of that is surprising. Surprising from my point of view. I represent myself, so I use the DREP functionality to vote one by one instead of delegating to a DREP. And to me, and of course, granted, I'm quite familiar with the system, so I have a skewed view. But to me, it's not a huge barrier. Is like one time I had to click a couple of extra buttons to register as a DREP, and now it's as simple as I connect my wallet, I vote yes or no on each proposal. So I'm curious what the barrier to voting for yourself is in this case. Because I know we call them a DREP and you still have to do that and you still are at risk of other people delegating to you. There's no way you can stop that. But other than that, what is the extra barrier based on the way the system's set up to voting for yourself?
The barrier wouldn't be for voting for yourself. The barrier would be for the average ADA holder who is not a DREP themselves.
So just the step of realizing you have to become a DREP if you want to vote for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, right? Could we make a major impact with people voting with sub 500 ADA accounts? Like, are there enough small accounts that could actually make a huge impact? Like what percentage of inactive voters are whales or major potential stakeholders in the ecosystem? Or is it a bunch of small fries, right? And if most of the ADA is stagnant right now, like, you know, it is one of the barriers that they don't have enough to self-represent as a DREP, right? And if they were able to directly represent, are we cutting out a potentially major aspect of the community that currently is unable to self-represent? So, I mean, I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Evo, volleying it back over to you since we're 2 minutes away from the end of the time slot.
Added one more recommendation: tool to redelegate power, DREP to another DREP, and just something random to kind of close this up. You can all asynchronously work, adding recommendations when they come up. Next time, I guess, yeah, we will see if we are having more discussions on here and adding recommendation. Alternatively, what we could go off with is looking at these 6 recommendations, 7 that came up today. We could, and yeah, if more comes, adding like these like Reddit style rank ordering for them. And yeah, in future workshops, what we're gonna do is based on what goes more top, we will be looking how we score them. And this will also like open up new discussions, like, okay, we do get to these recommendations because today we realized there are like, we have so many problems here, and like finding the right recommendation is quite a challenge. And even if we come to a good recommendation, like there is so many areas of that where it may be lacking, but these discussions bring up like opportunities to have even better recommendations. But yeah, thanks for today joining and trying to get like the first start of like coming up with something, some improvements for the Cardano governance. We have done so much work on analysis before, and thanks for everybody doing the surveys and the interviews and all the prior workshops to get to this point. But now is the real challenge of drafting these recommendations. But I hope with this upcoming workshops and all this activity, we will get to the state of getting to some meaningful understanding where we need to go. And yeah, from there, we take it into CFPs and problem statements like CPSs.
Great.
I wonder, we didn't hear today much from Ian Nuguna, and Seun, you all mentioned a bit of something earlier. Do you want to also close off, and how do you felt about this today's workshop?
It was an enriching conversation, but I also the question I'm leaving the session right now within my head is the same one that Danielle asked. Because if the challenge is you need to vote for yourself, like you want proposals that align with your beliefs, what is the barrier to entry? And to piggyback on that, how I see it is, if we have more stake pool operators and more Dreps, you'll also have more plurality of choice, where you have more people with the clout to vote in a way that aligns with you.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Ian, for bringing it up. So with that, thank you to everyone for attending.
Yeah, I do.
In the chat here, Marine, chilling out the Beyond Linktree so that you guys can contribute more if you want to. We're gonna keep this debate going on, and yeah, I gather some more insight from you guys on recommendations, what we can improve. Did I spoil it now, Maureen? Was that what you were supposed to say?
Yes, you spoiled it. So
I'm sorry.
I can't say anything. But yeah, thanks so much for coming, guys. I really appreciate it. And we have another session literally tomorrow. So if you don't have a life, well, sorry, I mean, if you have a life, if you care about governance, just show up, please. Thank you.